What's going on, everyone? It's Evan here, and I'm playing a little bit of Crysis Remastered, and I'm thinking a little bit about the games that have come out on Switch 2 so far, and kind of just the lack of games that we've seen. Honestly, I expected a lot more, and I'm sure you have too. After the crazy success of the Switch 1, I kind of thought that game devs and publishers from every corner of the industry would be lining up to have their games ready as soon as possible on Switch 2, but it looks like that hasn't been the case, although it might not be their fault. So today, I want to try and answer the question, where are all the games on Switch 2? Before I get into it, if you guys enjoy Nintendo speculation, news analysis, collecting, and just general gaming discussions, hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. We're pushing towards 1,000 subscribers. I'm trying to hit that by the end of the year. If you enjoyed this video too, I encourage you, please hit the like button, and let's get started. Taking a look at Nintendo Life's release calendar for the Switch 2, it's pretty barren. Just looking at all of the confirmed release dates we have at a glance, we have 5 in August, 7 in September, 11 in October, 7 in November, 1 in December, making a total of 31 confirmed release dates. Now we have 12 games slated for a Q3 or Q4 release date, and 18 tentatively scheduled for 2025 at some point. So that's 30, pretty much double that original number. So half of the games coming out this year, we already know a release date for, half of them we don't. And some of those games are really big deals. Stuff like Elden Ring Tarnished Edition and Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade were things that we heard about during the Switch 2 reveal, that big April Direct. These were supposed to be big highlight showcase games for the Switch 2, but so far we don't really know anything about them other than they're coming. And we haven't seen that many big game announcements, not quite the ones that we were kind of thinking or speculating we were going to see by this time. Stuff like Doom the Dark Ages, no news on that. None of the Resident Evils made the jump. Lies of P was a PS4 game, but that's nowhere to be seen on Switch 2. I know we're getting Persona 3 Reload, but Metaphor ReFantazio, no news on that. And even though we've had tons of rumors, Rockstar is still nowhere to be found with the port of Red Dead Redemption 2. A lot of these games have been mentioned or closely tied to releasing on the Switch 2 at some point, but so far, it's been hush-hush. So what's the deal? Where are all of these games? It's been a pretty slow drip up to this point. Well, thanks to some reporting we've had over the last couple weeks, we can pretty much definitively make the declaration that it's Nintendo's fault because their development and publishing partners just don't have dev kits to make Switch 2 games. And it's very well possible that even some of Nintendo's most trusted partners still didn't get the kits until far too late. Now, to Nintendo's defense, it is not uncommon for a console launch to have a backlog of dev kits that still need to go out to development partners, but usually dev kits still go out months before the console is released, sometimes more than a year out. But Nintendo was extremely picky with who they gave pre-release dev kits to. That fact has been widely reported pretty much since the Switch 2's reveal or even before that. Now we're getting a little bit of insight from somebody who is a game developer who has some industry insight, a little bit of an inside look behind the curtain, and that's from Modern Vintage Gamer. I'm a huge fan of his content, but he was recently on Nate the Hates podcast, who is another reputable Nintendo leaker, speculator, however you want to call him. But Modern Vintage Gamer on that podcast said that there are, quote, quite a few studios and publishers who don't have Switch 2 development hardware right now, and he suggested that a shocking number right here, 2/3 of people that made games for the original Switch don't have access to development kits for the Switch 2. That's a huge number, especially considering how many games are on the first Switch. The other ones, he said, are just waiting for the hardware to come in right now. And backing him up is the CEO of Digital Extremes, who makes Warframe, a huge free-to-play game, I'm sure you know it. But studio CEO Steve Sinclair explained why the team just hasn't made a Switch 2 port yet. They were pretty quick on the Switch 1, and actually the port of Warframe on Switch 1 is like excellent. That game runs really well for aging hardware, so credit to them. They are very, very talented. But he said the tech team at Digital Extremes is excited for a Switch 2 port, but they can't even begin development on it until they get their hands on the necessary hardware. That's quoting the IGN article on this. He said, quote, "Our tech team is excited to take advantage of the high-speed cores and other really cool features of the Switch 2. There's just such a backlog for dev kits." And then he joked, if you know anyone, just one, that's all it would take. Basically saying, we just need one and we don't even have one. As I'm here playing Crysis, I'm also kind of thinking this is probably the reason why we don't see a lot of Switch performance patches either. I'm sure you have seen these videos because I've seen a ton of them of people testing Switch 1 games on Switch 2. And a lot of the results I feel like in those videos come down to someone saying, hey, this game does run better on Switch 2, but it's probably still not at its full potential and it could use an upgrade for this new hardware. Crysis is a great example of that. I'm sure it could run a lot better and look a lot better. The resolution could definitely be higher, but it's most likely the same deal. I do wonder if by the the time that devs actually end up getting these kits, if they're even going to bother going back to the games they've released on Switch 1 and upgrade them and make a new patch, unless they charge for them, it kind of seems like a fool's errand unless they want to get some consumer goodwill. But you do need a team to go back and resurrect those games, and they've already been devalued, they've gone on sale, and you're not going to print new copies of them. So it is a little bit of a strained value proposition to think that they're going to go back and make all of these performance patches, especially when they're already put behind to keep up with the current projects that they're trying to work on, but they can't because there's no dev kit. And so all of this brings me to the last piece of reporting that we have just gotten, and I would call this a leak, and I would take it with a huge grain of salt, but I do want to talk about it because it is kind of interesting. So this write-up I'm sourcing here is from Gizmodo, but the news comes from YouTuber Doctray81, and he dug up some now deleted LinkedIn posts from a Poland-based studio called Lynxbyte. From the research that I've done into these guys, they look really new. Their first post on LinkedIn was just 5 months ago, so it's possible that they're just starting up, but I really don't see any body of work from them. So again, I'm taking this with a huge grain of salt. And these deleted posts from Lynxbyte on LinkedIn talks about how to get Switch 2 dev kits. They say that Nintendo is being very selective, and they claim that they're an official Nintendo partner, and they're sharing a verified step-by-step guide on how to approach getting a dev kit the right way. And that doesn't really seem like something a verified Nintendo partner would be posting on LinkedIn about, but okay. They say that porting your game is not enough. Even if your game already runs on the original Switch, that's not enough to get you publishing rights on Switch 2. It must be individually approved by Nintendo for their new platform. And going a little bit further, they say that Nintendo is currently prioritizing games that come from partnered devs, showcase the capabilities of the new hardware, bring clear value to the platform, and if your game does not take advantage of new system features, approval is currently unlikely. Right now, they're emphasizing 4K support at 60 frames a second or up to 120 at 1440p when docked, the use of the C button for game chat, mouse mode, HD Rumble 2, the built-in microphone, game share, and your pitch must clearly outline how your game leverages at least some of these features along with a detailed release plan. This write-up from Gizmodo also talks about Lynxbyte revealing some additional details, saying that the Switch 2 uses DLSS 3.1, which is a much older version of DLSS compared to what Nvidia offers right now. But Gizmodo notes that this all checks out because the Switch 2 specs are not currently up to date with the latest and greatest hardware. They did have to manufacture these chips and make them over years and whatnot. So yes, this does check out according to Gizmodo, which could add some credence to Lynxbyte's claims. Again, grain of salt, but something to think about as we move forward into the life of the Switch 2. It's still really early. This console is going to have a lot of games. Nintendo's going to support it for at least 6 years, 7 years. We're going to see this thing for a long time. But here in the early days, yes, this is a talking point. It is hard to not notice the lack of games coming out on Switch 2 right now. It's been kind of dry, which I mean, really, we saw this with the PS4 and the PS5. These things happen, but that's pretty much all I have for this news story. Let me know what you guys think. Why is the release calendar for the Switch 2 so dry right now? And when do you think it's going to start really picking up? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts on this video. And again, if you enjoyed, hit that like and subscribe button for more content just like this. With that, guys, my name is Evan, and I will see you in the next one.